Former PLO representative, Nabulsi.
Thank you, Hisham. Thank you to the Equality Movement for organizing another amazing room full of people to come to show support for Palestine at this moment. And this is a critical weekend, as everyone has said, because beginning today is 3 days of activities and resistance and intifada all over the Arab world, in Western Europe and in America, to show solidarity with the Palestinians and for the Palestinians themselves. And one of the key events are began today at Tahrir Square for Palestine, and was the beginning of a staged march to Rafah, to enter Gaza, to have a rally at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. And one of the key things that I think all of you have seen is how intimately linked Palestine is for justice for struggling people right across the Arab world, but also how it is one of the most important issues that bring people together in this country who are struggling for justice on a range of issues, on all of the things that they care about. Often, justice for Palestine brings people together to struggle in so many ways. Now, Jody said something that reminded me of my dad and my mother. I grew up from a refugee family, from refugees from 1948, from Jaffa. But when I grew up in Beirut, I was drilled from about the age of 2 on British history. And so, like most Palestinian youth, I knew the date of every treacherous British policy, from the Balfour Declaration, the Crane Commission, the White Paper. I mean, I've forgotten them now, thank God. I have a bit of because I was forced to learn all of these things. And it's true in a sense, Britain is very closely connected with Palestinian history. And not only do we have this history of that led up to the Nakba, which is a history which we commemorate as Palestinians. And I'd like to go over some of those dates and some of those events because they're extremely important for us to commemorate them today on the 63rd anniversary of the Nakba. 63 years ago, the summer of 1948, there were over 50 massacres against the population, the citizens of Palestine, to force us to flee and to expel us. The majority of our people were expelled between 1947 and the end of 1948. And we were expelled north from Palestine into Lebanon, east into what is now called the West Bank of Palestine, from the Galloway, north from the Galloway, east. So every major town, those of you who have been to occupied Palestine will know Ramallah, Bethlehem, Halil. Outside all of these towns are huge. Nablus, there's the biggest actually refugee camp, Balata, which holds a lot of our people from Jaffa. And from the coast down into Gaza, the majority of people today in Gaza are refugees that were expelled in 1948. But also up into Syria, we have today 470,000 Palestinian refugees in Syria. And I'd like to talk about them in a minute because they're in Darah now and in Homs. And there's massacres going on at this moment and in the last several weeks in those camps. Over to Iraq and to Jordan. And that is where the Palestinian people are, fragmented. There are Palestinians that manage to hold on and to stay. We have a large community of over 1 million in what is now Israel, what we call 48 Palestine. Gaza, the West Bank, but also the majority of us were expelled outside of historic Palestine, but live very, very close to it. We're very close to our land. And the Nakba commemoration began and grew in intensity in the last years because of the organization around the right of return. When we talk about these commemorations of these massacres, and there's been massacres of Palestinian refugees wherever we are to suppress us in our resistance and our struggle to return to our homes. It's a very, very simple, the issue of Palestine is very, very simple for all of you to come around and to understand. It is a struggle for justice, but it's primarily and essentially a struggle of return, of people to return to their home. And the Palestine, the movement, the resistance movement that grew up and emerged in the 50s and early 60s out of the Nakba, the catastrophe, was a movement of return. It wasn't to create a state, one state or two states or no states. It's about a very simple principle, which is based on every person's right to their home. And if you keep this in your minds about what the struggle is about, and keep it attached to that very simple claim of people to their land, then it makes sense of a struggle of solidarity and justice, and also doesn't involve the kinds of arguments about, is it a state here, or what happens to Gaza? Each of our communities, Gaza, Jerusalem, the West Bank, the Lebanon, Syria, all of our people. In Saudi Arabia, we have hundreds of thousands of young Palestinian refugees without papers. We have tens of thousands of Palestinian refugees now in Egypt, many of them in prison because they don't have the right documentation, because we are a stateless people. Yeah? All Palestinians are equal, and all have the right to return to their home, and that all of you must remember them. So when we talk about the list of commemorations, it's not because we are victims, although historically we are the victims of this Western imperialism, but because it is our mobilizing understanding of what we have to overcome. Today in Darah, there are atrocities going on, and they are happening to both the Syrian and the Palestinian people. We have over 33,000, I think, Palestinian refugees in Darah camp. There's UNRWA facilities there, the United Nations. It's been there since 1950. All over Syria, there's UN facilities that have been set up for us while we wait till we can return. These were set up for us as a short-term emergency United Nations structure to help us for that 1 year or 6 months of the fighting in 1948, before 49, before we went home. 62 years later, UNRWA is still there. It's the largest UN agency. And we don't want UNRWA. We want to return to our homes. However, UNRWA, until such a time, provides the education, the facilities, and some very minimal, but it does not provide the protections that all Palestinian refugees, that all actually refugees come under, which is the UNHCR. So, if you remember the war on Lebanon in 2006, UNRWA opens its facilities not just for registered refugees, but for the local population as well. For the Lebanese people during that war by Israel on Lebanon, that was the one place that they could go if they'd been bombed, if they had bad injuries with bullet wounds. It's the same in Syria now. The UNRWA facilities should be open to the local Syrian population who are under siege without any of the services open in Darah and now Homs, and in all the southern district. In Medan in Damascus, in Yarmouk, up on the coast in Latakia, the same thing is going on. the Palestinian people are, one, intimately connected with the Arab people, and two, connected to each other. We are a refugee people. We are fragmented and dispersed by Israel and kept so by the policies of the West, but we are united. We are united in our aims. So while I talked about the commemoration of these massacres, and we have a litany and a history and a calendar of these massacres, Tabal Zatar, Sabra Shatila, I could go on, and we remember them and we commemorate them. We also have, the Palestinian people, a remarkable tradition of resistance. And that's why tonight's talk, from the Nakba to the Intifada, is something that also unites us with a remarkable tradition in this country. I think I met George Galloway in 1978 in Beirut when he was planning the twinning of Glasgow with Nablus. Dundee, sorry, Dundee. Ah, how could I have said that, George? Okay, and I've met over these decades so many remarkable people from this country who have devoted their lives to share with us our struggle for justice. And it always connects with their own struggle for justice in their own countries, in Dundee, in London, wherever you are. And so this tradition of resistance we have means that the Palestinian people are pluralist, are highly democratic, are highly engaged. I think what many of you already knew, but which many people were introduced to, is how unlike the Orientalist images that they've been given about the Arab people, how we like dictatorships, how Islam means that we're slavish, how we only want economic improvements, how we don't care about our freedoms and our rights. I think that all of those have been shattered when they have been introduced to the Arab people and seen the beauty and courage. If you see the people in Bahrain, the people today in Libya, in Yemen, in Syria, in Egypt, and their connection with our own history of resistance. You talk to the Egyptian activists after 2000 and how they began, and how the impact of the first demonstrations in solidarity, the Egyptian people in solidarity with us, with the Second Intifada, and the crackdowns by the Egyptian regime, and the lessons that it provided to the activists, and then the workers, and then the unionists, and the socialists, and the Nasrites, and the Brotherhood, and all of them, step by step by step by step, to lead to the public square for everyone. The public square for the Palestinians crosses borders, but we have it. And this weekend, over these 3 days of activities, Palestinian refugees are organizing around a single demand. And that single demand, I actually have the flyer for it, and it's being distributed among the Nakba committees, which are the popular committees in the refugee camps in Jordan and Syria, all across the Palestinian communities in America and here. And it's a direct elections to the Palestine National Council, which is our parliament, which is the Palestine Liberation Organization, because the Palestinian people want to reclaim their own institutions, just like the Arab people in every country are reclaiming their public institutions because they belong to them. And our revolutionary movement belongs to us, to all of us, inside and outside, whether you're on the left or the right, whether you believe in 2 states or 1 state or no state, whether you're religious or secular. Our national institutions of liberation belong to us. And those institutions for Palestinians who are struggling are for two things, which are our principles: liberation and return. Thank you very much.